Hello, good morning to all. Today here I am Kusum Chaudhary, Assistant Professor in School of Architecture, Galgotias University. Today we are going to start with your first module, which is Introduction to Architecture. In this module, we have architecture design subject, and in this subject, today we will cover this topic, which is a relationship between basic design and architectural design. So let's start with today's lecture. In this slide, here are given some objective of this module. First one is unlearn the traditional classroom system and get acquainted to project-based learning. Second one is learning graphical representation of everyday experiences. And third is the understanding professional ethics and value. In this slide, here I mentioned some topic outline like introduction, fine art, applied art, visual art, performing art, applied art in architecture, references, and at the end, assignment. So let's start with the introduction. As we all know, the first phase of human existence was the Paleolithic Age, which is known as the Old Stone Age. From the very beginning of this period, human made stone tools. For example, you can see this image. There are different type of stone tools with different type of shape and sizes. So these tools used for the hunting purpose in old stone age. Here are the some other example of the prehistoric art. Basically prehistoric art was start with the 25,000 to 2500 BC. uh, they use the painting. Cave painting of animal showed a successful hunt. For example, you can see in this painting, they painted the show the everyday life, images of everyday life. For example, you can see here the different activities which is shown in this painting. Here are given some animal images and birds images painted on caves wall with fingers, and they use the brush made of sticks for the painting purpose. And sometimes they use made of crushed rock, berries, and charcoals as outline for the animals. So we can say these are the first example of human art. So next is the fine art. What is mean by the fine art? So one definition of fine art is an art considered to have been created primarily for aesthetic and intellectual purposes, and judged for its beauty and meaningfulness. Specifically, a painting, sculpture, drawing, watercolor, graphics, and architecture. These all comes into the fine art. For example, these paintings you can see here, first one and second one, these are painting of the example of fine art. Painting and sculpture are the world oldest art form, both dating to the beginning of the Upper Paleolithic. Stone Age painting are found upon natural rock surfaces, while Stone Age sculpture is represented mainly by small carving in stone, bone, ivory, and clay. You can see these two examples of the stone carving. First one is from the Venus of Berkhat Ram, which is 2,30,000 to 5 lakh BCE. See, this is the earliest art form. And second one is the relief sculpture of a horse, which is the 12,000 BCE old. That is known as the rock ox. Sauciers, a masterpiece of cave art from the Magdalenian. So these are the example of the fine art. Next art form is the applied art. As it is clear by its name, applied art means the art refer to the application of artistic design to utilitarian object in everyday use. For example, crockery. In glass, you can see the example and applied art in the plate. You can see this is the fog, and whereas work of fine art have no function other than providing aesthetical or intellectual simulation to the viewer. Work of applied art are usually functional objects which have been prettified or creatively designed with both aesthetically and functional. So these are the some example of the applied art. For example, table lamp. So this is the daily use object. Next is the pot. Next is the furniture. So basically applied art means, as I mentioned, which is used in everyday uses object. So these are all the example of the applied art. Here is the another example of applied art in the architecture. The first applied art to be practiced in a major way was architecture. From Egyptian pyramids, the ziggurat of Sumer, and the seven wonders of the ancient world. Architects combine aesthetical with mathematics to design a functional but pleasing structures. For example, the Ziggurat of Sumer, and this is the seven wonders of world. As we all know, this is the Taj Mahal. Next is the Colosseum, Rome, which is in Italy, and another is the Egyptian pyramid, which is in Egypt. So these are the examples of applied art in architecture. Since then, the demands of the modern world have included housing and commercial projects, notably high-rise buildings and skyscrapers. Next is the visual art. Visual art are things like painting, drawing, visual design, photography, and computer art. So the art created primarily for visual perception, that is comes under the visual art. The visual art are the art that we can see. This category usually include just thing that we see and things that are flat or two-dimensional, but not always, because visual art means two-dimensional things. Sculpture and architecture comes under the separate heading. So uh, here are the given some examples and paintings of the visual art. So this is the painting of Mona Lisa, and this is the sketching of a woman. This is the another painting, and this is the another painting of a woman. So these are the painting and sketchings which comes under the visual art, and these are the example of the visual art. Next is performing art. Forms of creative activity that are performed in front of an audience, such as drama, music, and dance. So these types of activities comes under the performing art. So first one is the example of performing art is dance performance. You can see in this first image, this is the dance performance by a girl. Next is the singing performance. In singing performance, it can be solo performance, it can be in group singing performance, and third one is the music performance. So these are the example of the performing art. So now we comes on the art interdependency. Art interdependency means interdependence is a visual art exhibition about the interconnectedness of life on this planet. Visual art in architecture. So architecture is the process and the product of planning, designing, and constructing building or any other structures. That is the known as the architectural system, architectural process. Architectural work in the material form of buildings are often perceived as cultural symbols and as work of art. For example, materials form of building, it can be of RCC, which is mean by the reinforced cement concrete. Here you can see the glass. It can be the any type of cladding like stone cladding, wooden cladding, and steel cladding, steel materials, and different types of materials. Another example of the visual art in architecture, which is mean is architecture is an art form that reflects how we represent ourselves across the earth landscape, and like other expressive medium, it can change with style, technology, and cultural adaptations. For example, in this first image you can see the presentation method of the exterior of a building, and in this image you can see the interior of a house, the representation, how we represent the interior design of a house or a building, or it can be any type of structure. So these are the method of the representation of the architectural drawings. Here are given some examples of applied art in architecture. Basically, this is the building in Barcelona, Spain, which is known as the Casa Batalló. Casa Batalló in Barcelona, Spain, also known as the House of Bone. Casa Batalló was remodeled in 1904 by famed architect Antoni Gaudí. It is defined an example of Art Nouveau architecture, or its Spanish term known as modernism, in a broad sense, with its curving facade and use of glass and iron work. So you can see in this building facade, these are the curve forms, curve line, and this is the glass work and iron work for the railing. So this is the example of applied art in architecture. Next example of applied art in architecture is the Cat House, Riga, Latvia. Cat House, Riga, Latvia. Here you can see in this image, this is the cat house. Riga is the place to go for Art Nouveau lover, as it's estimated that one-third of the city's buildings were constructed in this style. This is built in the 1909. The cat house take its name from two cat sculptures that grace the roof. So at the end, here are given assignment related to this lecture. Here are given three questions. First one is make a collage showing different types of fine art. Second one is what is difference between fine art and visual art. Third one is explain the visual art and applied art in architecture with appropriate examples. So you have to solve these three questions. In this slide, here are given some references. So you can use these references for more detail about the art and architecture. So in the end, I would like to conclude uh, this lecture with two lines. It is impossible to imagine our world without art, because art have very important role in our culture and society from the past. So that's all for this lecture. Thank you.